You are right on time. How are you doing today?
Good.
Good.
Just, you know, trying to breathe, deep breaths. It's been a long day. I feel like it's been a long week, but we're halfway there. So it's all good. How are you?
Same. It's been a long week for sure, but
I
we're almost at. Well, I mean, is there ever a finish line? Is there ever? I feel like
No.
it's never
I
really
mean,
a finish
yes, there's death, we could
line.
die, and
It's
that's
true.
the
It's
end
the
of it.
final. That's the final. Yeah. I guess you have a point there. The marathon continues. Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah,
And
I'm
then
doing. Mhm.
what happens after life? If you believe in such thing, right? If there is an afterlife, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's a whole another topic there.
I know, right? But speaking of topics, what are we discussing? What do you want to chat about? Where do we follow up, I guess?
Well, I wanted to see how you were doing, check in, see how things are going on in your world, and
Yeah.
I can do the same. There's a couple things that have been top of mind for me, like the importance of community. Um, yeah, that's top of mind for me. Like just the importance of community, and also when we talk about content, like there's so much content out there, and
Hmm.
I often see content where it's like, oh, I made six figures or I became a millionaire, after being in tech for a couple of years. And I think I, that's that's the content. It can be inspiring to a degree, and it's what could push people into trying something. But it's
Yeah.
also like unrealistic expectations. So that's something that I've been thinking about as well. Because now now that we're like content creators again,
Hmm.
we're in this space, and it's like what's going to be our lane. Do we want to kind of have the font do we want to flex and show like what's possible in this space,
Yeah.
or do we want to kind of take the more realistic approach of like, here's what to expect, it's not all glitz and glamour.
You know my answer to this. I don't even have to say it, right? I
Okay.
think we're already doing it. You know what I mean? I think we've already kind of paved the way in how we want this to go, right? And also just by nature of who we are, what we represent, what we're about, I think it is very much the true essence and experience, or as close to it as possible. In a format like this, I do believe like content. Speaking of content, right? I believe that content can be viewed in so many different ways. You can look at it like you said, inspirational, educational, motivating, but also you can look at it like it can be draining, right? To consume content, to
Yeah.
create content. So for me, it's always like, how can we get closer to the real truth of, this experience that we are having in tech sales, right? But also that other people in our surroundings are having, because a lot of the times when we have conversations too, it's not just our own personal direct experience. It's also like, here are some things and experiences and situations that other people in this world have gone through. So let's talk about that as well. Um, so yeah, I'm always team, let's drop it like it's hot. Let's drop the real truth, right? The knowledge, the skills that everyone would need to whatever extent they want to get into, right? Because the thing for me about content too, like sometimes it can become too fluffy, too inspirational almost, like it's just like you can't really see like what they mean, because you're like I guess I get it, it does inspire me to some extent, but how can I actually apply these things, and how can I make that my own thing? Because
Yeah.
the last thing you want is to for everyone to follow the same path, right? For everyone to do the same thing, for everyone to use the exact same way of doing business. Let's say it's like reaching out to someone using the exact same messaging. It's like it's not going to work, and we kind of know it's not going to work. So
Mm.
how can we make this more of a personal thing, which maybe lead us to community? But
Yeah.
there's a lot of topics here, so you tell me.
Let's start with community.
Yeah.
Let's start with community because I think it is a good segue because I think content community go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about community. I mean, first of all, what is community? What does community mean to you?
Gosh, such a big question, but it's really simple because community is like a group of people to me that are gathering together for some purpose. It can be like, I used to think about community in the essence of like building a virtual community of people gathering from all over the place.
Mhm.
And I also now think about it that way. But in addition to that, I think about like actual like local community. Like how can you, micro communities is a thing, right? They're like just like micro events are a thing versus like the bigger events. So yeah, I mean, community is like people, I guess, deciding to come together to help each other one way or another, to uplift each other is how I would hope a community would serve someone. But I think people are in a community for various different reasons. Some of it is like people are there for selfish reasons, like part of a community. And for others, it's like a place to gather, and to help each other. But that, I guess, is one aspect of it. What's community to you?
I think the same. The same community is people coming together that have like shared values or
Mm-hmm.
shared interests, and they come together to to feel included and to feel like they're part of. I think it's also a aspect of a feeling of being part of something bigger than yourself.
Mm.
So we're stronger together, right? So I think when people come to community, it's like, hey, this is my tribe. These are the people that I can do bigger and better things with.
Yeah.
Whether it be virtually or in person, as you were saying. So,
But it's also like, to me, a sense of belonging is what community can bring.
no,
Uh,
absolutely.
to your point, because I think now people are part of so many communities because you can be,
Yeah.
uh, and you gain and gather so many different things from different groups, different people, right? It's just like going to, I think about the days where I used to go to nightclubs when I was a party girl, but I'm not anymore. Like there were some places where they would have multiple different vibes, like different types of music in within the same place, right? So you would go to one floor, let's say, and it would be like, let's say, dance hall. You go to the next one, it would be like disco. And you're like, okay, next one will be like something completely different.
Yep.
But that's kind of how I think about communities too. Like you can go from one to the next and you would experience and have a different feeling, different vibe, different people, different resources available. But yeah, that's kind of how I think about how communities are now.
That's a great analogy.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's because that is, and like nowadays the club is slack.
Yes,
And you
exactly.
go channel to chat, you go from like group to group.
Yep, that's exactly it. That's like how I feel like. And part of me got like really tired from that jumping around. Um, because you think about it, like if we have so many different resources, we're almost at a place where I think a lot of sellers might feel like when they're in a company, it's like, there's so much that I could do. There are so, like we talk about tools, right? In a company, some companies have like endless amount of tools to the point where it doesn't really like enable the sales reps, because if you have too much of a choice, then you kind of paralyzed a little bit for some, and others are like, okay, no, like this is actually a great thing because that means I can use these set of tools for this particular purpose, and then come back and use these tools over here and kind of mix and match how they're orchestrating everything. But yeah, it's it's almost like you have so much of places to go, like all these different Slack groups, all these different um subgroups of that. And then you have like if you work for a company, you have your Slack, you have all these different community Slack groups, and then next thing you know, you're like, where do I place my attention? Um, because that's what everyone is fighting for at the end of the day. Content creation, community involvement. People are looking for engagement. They're looking for people's attention, right? Like they want you to be where you're creating. So like we want more people to
Isn't
jump
that
on.
interesting? That's very interesting. I mean, it is interesting because at the end of the day, we're all and like we're not any different. I don't think we're any different. Like everybody, we it's about attention, and we want to, because I think for some people it stems from goodwill, others not, more selfish intentions. Like I want your attention so I can sell you something, or I want your attention so that I can be an influencer. But for some people, it's like, hey, I want your attention because I want to help you, and I think I
Exactly.
have things that are good for you. And sometimes it can be like both,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it is very fascinating because it is almost of like it's like where do people, what's the solution for that when there's so, I guess, yeah, when there's so many tools, when there's so many channels, where there's so much, what becomes the solution? Because it
Mm-hmm.
can't be more tools. Like it can't be like, okay, to combat communities, we're gonna build a community.
Right.
Like to combat communities, we're gonna build a community. Like, no, like what's the solution?
That's the question. I guess it depends on, what the purpose is, what the vision is. And
Yeah,
at the end of the day, it depends on what the audience, the ones who are receiving this, what they gather as being valuable for them. I think it's
yeah,
at the end of the day, it's up to them, right, who are consuming them.
the individual.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the things that I've been noticing as I've been building out Jobski is that like there's so many. So obviously you have the tech industry, right? And then you have people trying to break into tech. And so there's actually communities being built around people trying to break into tech. So there's a whole
Yeah.
community of people who are aspiring tech professionals, but that aren't in it, but they're a community. And then on the other side of this room, you have people that are in tech and they're in their
Yeah.
own communities. And it's just almost like, huh. And I think the challenging part is that like all the recruiters and like the
Mm-hmm.
companies, they're not dealing with the people outside they're not dealing with those communities. They're dealing with the community. So like when we talk, and oftentimes those communities, it's a it's more monogamous. It's like it's not monotonous. I would say it's like obviously D&I, it's growing, people that look like us and other it's getting more diverse as time goes on, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
slower pace. And this communities over here are full of people that just super diverse. They're just waiting. They just want to break down that door. They just want to kick down the door and like, all right, back to the club analogy. It's like
This is
it's
the
like,
theme.
look, hey, here goes the club analogy. It's like, look, you got the floor number one. It's the hip hop floor, right? It's
Uh-huh.
lit. It's lit. Everybody is popping, right? And then you got
Yep.
upstairs, you got the jazz floor, and the jazz floor is like, they serving quality wine, and it's cool, right?
Yeah.
The the radio or the power goes out on stage floor. The power goes out on the first floor. So everybody kicking in the door to try to get into the jazz room. So that's the analogy that I would
Yeah.
use. Like communities, there's different communities, but also these communities can sometimes be exclusive and it's hard for people to break into them. So that's another thing that I've been thinking about as well as it
Yeah.
relates to communities.
It's such a good point because one of the first thing that we thought about when we started Rep Genius, which is another community,
Yeah.
so we thought about that idea of, okay, who's this going to be accessible to, right? But also, like who and how is this going to be accessible? So one of the things is like you have to think about that model early on. Do we make this free for anyone and everyone to join? It won't cost them. There won't be any barriers. Or do we put some barriers in between that? Or do we do something like similar to LinkedIn, which is a freemium plan, right? Like you can get in for free, but then if you want the extra stuff, the spicy stuff,
Yeah.
then you got to pay for it. Like that's another version, right? And I think what you're doing is kind of bridging the gap between accessibility and affordability as well. Because there's one thing of having things available for people, and they have the choice of like basically upgrading themselves to a different path and to have more options and more resources available, or they don't, right? But it's all in the intentions, I think, in how you build it, with that is a community or it is a new platform, or like you're doing with Jobski. I think the intention as you're getting that built out is what's really going to set the tone and kind of the culture of that company too, right? And that company like culture, but also like community culture kind of sets the tone in the beginning too, is who's going to be part of it. And that can come down to who can afford this if there's a cost to it, right? But I think what your point that I really think stood out was the fact that like we do have these different communities, and the group that is trying to break into tech is then coming up on their own and kind of having their own sideline conversations, right? And building that up. And I think that's really cool. I think that's like powerful. The question is, how do you now combine the two? Because you can't do these two things in silos. I mean, you can, but I don't think you should. I think they should be combined, right? People who are breaking into tech should hear from people who are already in the position, right? And people who are in the position should be able to reach back down and say, hey, I recognize that you're at this position or at this level. I want to help you get to whatever's next for you.
I agree.
So that's where the mentorship comes in.
Yeah, I have some other thoughts too.
Yeah.
I'll share offline with you after the report. Maybe next episode, okay. On the next episode, what we'll do is I do have an experiment that I want to run, and maybe we can try it together. And
Okay.
next episode, we'll talk about it.
Wait, what? You're just gonna leave it like that?
Yeah, we'll leave it like that. For the leave it like that.
No. You can't do that. That's like,
I can't give a week. People move fast, Gail. I can't give the whole play. I gotta try it first, see if it works, and then if it works, then I'll come. Or if it don't work, I'll for sure come tell you.
To be fair, that's fine. I probably will like forget that we had this thing to work on until next week, and then I'll go, all right, let's talk about it.
I'll remember.
I hope so. I mean, I'll probably put a note in our next invite.
Okay. So
we don't forget.
My competitors might be listening to these podcasts. I don't know. I'm a Scorpio. We are very.
Yes, you are.
You never know.
Yes, you are.
You never know who's watching. So I try to keep it on the under.
Yeah, no, okay, fair. You do you. But speaking of Scorpios.
Okay. Here we go. Now this conversation is about to get real spicy. We'll get fun now. Okay. Speaking of Scorpios.
I'm kidding. I don't have any stories about Scorpios other than, nothing. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna talk shit. Actually, what's funny is now February. So you were basically made in this month because you were born, right?
Yes.
In November, 20th of November.
Yes.
And the reason why this is fresh in my mind, I swear I don't just remember people's birthdays like that, but like November is a big month, but it's also for my family. But I had just put together like all the people I know, work closely with, and people in my life, like on the calendar. So I was like, when is Robert's birthday again? But I remember it's somewhere close to mine, but it's not exactly the same day, but we're 4 days apart. So anyway, I put that down. So I remember your birthday, and I thought, he's a Scorpio. Damn it. But I'm sorry, I don't have anything against Scorpios. The reason why is that I am like on the cuff to be a Scorpio, and that's why it's always a joke for me. And my loved ones, it's like, could have been a Scorpio, but I'm not. But I act like one sometimes. And this reminds me, you actually, I think it was in our last conversation, on the one before that, you mentioned something about horoscopes, and I was like immediately shut it down. So I think this is the opportunity to talk about it. The horoscopes.
I forgot what we talked about, but I forgot what we talked about. But yes, I am a Scorpio. I'm also on the cusp. My birthday is November 20th, so I'm 1 day or 2 days before Sagittarius. And I was I was God's purpose, but I was my parents' accident. But it's all good. When I do the math, so that any baby born in November 20th, 15th, anytime around that time, you have to understand, like 9 months prior was Valentine's Day in America.
Exactly.
So, hey, I'm a love baby.
Yes. I mean, so am I, but 100% believe that I was one of the biggest mistakes, but that's okay. I'm happy.
We were God's purpose. I mean, it's the reason we're here.
Yes, definitely. That's why we're here. But actually, I do wonder though, do you believe in horoscopes? Is this something that you actually like follow?
Not really. I'm not really. I'm not like a super, like, I'm not super into it. I just know mine because, I think everybody knows theirs. And I do think there's some parallels, and I do think there might be something to it just because of this. Like I saw a book one time. It was a horoscope book, and that book was thicker than the Bible. It was like 2 Bibles and a dictionary. I'm like, it's got to be some truth to this. They got all this content around. It's like graphs. There was like graphs and charts and math.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's really scientific. It ain't.
Yeah. No, it's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
It is a whole thing. I like never really got into it. Like at times, I'm just like you. I would check it out sometimes, whatever. Don't make too big a deal out of it, other than when I want to talk shit to people, and then I'm like, oh, you're an Aquarius? Oh, okay, fine. But other than that, like, no, nothing serious. But also because I never got into it, because one of the things to figure out, or I guess down the line of this, is like you need to know not only obviously when you're born, like year and date, but also what time. And I was like, who knows this information? Like, do you know what time you were born?
Yeah. It's on your birth certificate. I think I was born like 4 a.m. or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was born in the morning.
So have you actually looked at your birth certificate?
Yeah.
Oh. I haven't.
We gotta find Galen's birth certificate.
Clearly, because I've been so curious my entire. I'm like, when was I born? And the thing, people would probably listen to this and be like, "You idiot! Just ask your parents." I can't. Like, my dad is dead. He died years ago. My mom is still alive, but we don't have that type of relationship. And I was born and raised in Sweden, but raised in a foster family for majority of my childhood. So like, I don't have all the information, And so when people like,
hospital?
I do know what hospital, of course, yes.
They probably
So
know. They probably
this is kind of my next step, is like, because I got to figure this out at least like twice a year. I think about this, if not more often. Like, I need to figure out when I was born, like exactly what time, because I have no clue.
Yeah, you should call the hospital. I think your best bet is going to be the hospital. I honestly don't know. I think the hospital, though, they would have that record.
Yeah, they should. But this is the other thing where I'm like, I've been procrastinating this obviously for years because I haven't found the answer. But this year might be the year, 2023, where I get my shit together and actually
what if you find your birth certificate and actually you were born like 3 days earlier and you're a Scorpio? How would it make you feel? Would you be kind of happy? Would you be like upset?
I mean, I don't think I would feel anything different. I probably, if that ever were to happen, I think my initial reaction would probably be just laughing and go like, okay, that's funny. But yeah, I don't know. It's horoscopes are just one of those things. I think people, maybe people will hate me saying this, but I feel like sometimes when, and I've been this person too, like when I need to believe something is true or something is not true, I will lean on the horoscope. I'll be like, look, like it makes sense, it's like, it makes sense now. But at the end of the day, I'm like, do I really believe in it? No.
Yeah, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, definitely is.
Yeah. That would be crazy though.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, folks.
Let's figure out what time I was born. But yeah, those are the things you can, I don't know what people learn from those things, but I guess like, is part of understanding horoscopes a part of understanding yourself? Is that Do you think what people are looking for? Or others?
I think people are looking for a direction. I think people are looking for purpose. I think people are looking for help.
Yeah.
I think I think people are looking for guidance, and so the horoscope, to a certain degree, provides that. So my whole thing is, the reason why I haven't dove too deep into it is because I, as much as possible, try to get my guidance from God and less from the horoscope. And this is no shade to any, and it's no shade or anything, but I think that's why people really, because they want to know their future. I think the same kind of motivation someone would go to a tarot reader is the same reason they would go see the horoscope. It's like, what's my future? Is this person meant for me? Is it's all that type of stuff. It's like reading the future, low key.
Maybe. I don't know if I agree that it's about reading the future per se. Like, I know I sometimes have looked at horoscopes and gone, and actually not even looking at my own Sagittarius, I'm looking at others.
For
You
what?
know,
What's the reason though? Why are you looking at others?
usually it would be something of like, I need to understand why this person is the way they are. And maybe the sign will get me closer. But it's not about the future. You know, it's not like, oh, I'm dating this guy and I wonder if he loves me. So like, let's look at the sign. It's not like that. You know what I mean?
I think it's similar because you're looking for direction. You're trying to understand this person. Maybe either justify some past activity or thing that they did, or predict what they're going to be like or do or react to something in the future. So I've done it. Don't get me wrong. I look at the horoscope and I'm like, oh, let me see, but so I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I'm just saying that's why people do it. I think people are they're curious about the future, or like they want to know. The horoscope gives answers. And people have questions.
Yeah. I will say though, like, as much as I don't believe in horoscopes, that doesn't mean like I don't, like I said, look at it or read it. I do, but I don't fundamentally believe in it. But I will say, like, tarot cards and readings, that's a whole other ball game, my friend.
I ain't doing that. Is that what you do think? Hold on. No, you don't even have to answer that. But look, for me,
you're like, listen.
I'm not playing with that. I'm not playing with. I'm not playing with the tarot stuff. I'm cool.
So I've always wanted to like. hold on. I finalized with this one. So I've always wanted to, and I haven't done this yet. I haven't done it, but if there's someone out there who knows someone like dope, qualified, I'll pay attention to it. But I've always wanted to sit down with someone who can do that thing. And like, I've never done it like in person. I've done it virtually once, which was cool. But again, to your point, I was actually looking for some answers, or I was looking for maybe a better understanding of whatever the situation was at the time. And now the question is, did it give me that, right? What I was looking for. And actually it did. At the time, it did. I felt like walking. I know you're just shaking your head like this is nonsense, but I did get what I needed from that conversation. And like I did, I got what I needed, so it was fine. But I've never done this in person because I don't know who to go to. I don't know like how it works.
I'm sure there's some tarot people. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
Their business is probably booming. I'm just cool. I'm not doing that. I'm cool.
That's fair.
I'd rather meditate. I'd rather just sit in my own kind of just whatever and try to let it come to me, whatever it is. And like, I think too is like, again, I'm spiritual and like my spirituality is rooted in like the Bible. I'm not the biggest Christian, but my spirituality and how I see God and how I interact with the spiritual world is rooted in the Bible. That doesn't mean I can't read the Quran or I can't read things from different religions, whatever it might be. But I'm just saying my spirituality is rooted in the Bible. And so I think for me, what's helped me, I've always had more clarity when I just read the Bible or like, and again, I'm not trying to say I'm holier than thou or anything like that. I'm just saying what's worked for me. But I don't know, because and also I'll tell you this too. The reason why I've always never messed with the tarot is because when I was growing up, my mom was a big Christian, and she was the reason. She's the reason for my faith. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have faith, because she took me to church. She instilled that in me. And I think one time I asked her about it when I was a kid, and she was like, "No, don't do that." It's like, so I've always just been afraid, and so my mom, that stuck with me for a long time. And but honestly, there's no shade to anybody else that doesn't. And to be honest with you, I don't think there's much of a difference between the tarots and the zodiacs, and I think it's all the same stuff. And you just take it with a grain of salt. And but that's just me.
Yeah, no. And what I always find interesting about people and that we have different beliefs is that, exactly to this point, it's coming from somewhere. The reason why you believe that this isn't the area for you to look at or focus on is because that's what you've been taught. That's what you've been told, right? That's all you know. So like,
I will clarify. That's what I've been taught, but it's also like there's some things I've been taught that like I've outgrown, or that I've I've been taught that. Then as my worldview and my world experiences have evolved, I've come to like unlearn those things, or say, no, actually, I'm cool off that too, Mom.
Of course.
But I'm like, Mom, I'm cool off that too. But I think this is something where it's like I was taught that, and it stuck with me, and I still wouldn't go to somebody that is reading some cards and be like, here's what your future is. I'd rather just be a surprise.
Here's what's happening next for you. Yeah, I don't know why, some people have more of that tendency to want to figure things out. I think I've always been like a dreamer in some ways. I've always been the kind of person to want to like be prepared, know what's coming ahead of me. And at the same time, as I say that, I know that it never works. My life is like the perfect example of someone who has tried their hardest to do things in a certain way or in a certain timeline, but constantly being proven that that doesn't work for me. That whole planning, prepping around certain things that supposed to happen, I say in quotation marks, in life, just never did the way I intended them to. So for me, like, there's also that realistic part of like, okay, what do you have control? What can you do? But I think it's also like the dreamy part, I don't know what's going to happen, but let's see where this might take me,
Oh, that's what you get when you talk to them. It's like,
yeah, it's kind of like that.
This is cool. I got enough dreams. I got dreams that'll fill up my house, but I need less dreams.
Yep.
I don't know what they would tell me. Well, what if they tell you something like, this is your last year on Earth? Would you want to know that?
Who would say that?
The tarot reader, they're supposed to know your future.
Oh, well, not like specifically like that, right? But I don't know. I mean, honestly, I've always, when people ask that question, like, if you knew when you were going to die, would you want to know or would you not? How do you feel? If someone knew,
like if I knew I was going to die like in a month, I would stop everything with job ski. I take all. I would go to some other shit. So yeah, it depends on how much time I got. If I have less than a year, I want to know.
But hold on, that's not the question. That's not the question. The question isn't a part of the timeline. So the question is, if someone knew exactly when, not how, but just when you're gonna die, how much more time you have on this earth, would you want to know it ahead, or would you just not know and The day will come when it comes.
I don't want to know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to know. I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid of like dying. I honestly, I'm not afraid of it. Like, you know, because we don't even know what's there. Like, it could be lit. Hey, we could die and be back at the club, you know? Like,
Exactly. That might be the reunion, you know, but also, okay, follow-up question to this is, can you, when you envision your future as, you know, whatever the future is, can you, or do you have visions, or can you see yourself like growing older and becoming like an old gentleman? Older gentleman.
absolutely. I've been able to do that since I was a kid. I remember being like in elementary school, and you know, when you're a kid and time is not owned by you, and like you like your life is not yours. Like you
Mhm.
have to like listen to your parent, right? Time moves by so slow unless you're outside having fun with your peers and your friends, right? And so I remember in times where time was moving slow, I would be envisioning myself older. And like, I don't know if you ever watch cartoons, but you know how like on a cartoon, it'll be like, it'll do like a little like ripple effect, and it'll be like in
Yeah.
the future of that person. I
Yeah.
would do that for myself. Like, oh, like,
So wait,
so
this was as a kid, but like now as an adult, do you envision yourself as, you know, growing older, becoming that older gentleman, older man?
to a certain degree, yeah, to a certain degree, but not as much because
Mhm.
now every day is like I'm so caught up in the moment, and like time is already flying. Time is just flying. Days for me are like minutes, and months are
Mhm.
like days. Like it's just
Mhm.
flying. So I don't really think about the future too far because it's like time is just flying so fast that I don't really have time to think. I don't really just think. Like I plan like I want to be alive and I want to like do things. Obviously, I want to live a long time.
Yeah.
My great grandmother's still alive. She'll be 102 years old this year. So like I want to live a life like that where I'm just alive, but
Yeah.
um I don't envision myself. I mean, I do. I feel like I'd be like a fly old man. I'd be like one of the old men because I just feel like the older I get, I'm gonna age like wine. At least that's what I
Yeah.
think. So
Yeah.
yeah, you know, but yeah, that's my answer. What about you?
Mm.
What about you? Do you think about like 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now?
I do. I think about it often. I envision what that life would look like. However, I would say I have a hard time envisioning myself as, you know, grandma, you know, at that stage. I do have a very hard time with this. And it's not about growing older and the whole aging thing. That's not the thing. It's just I have a hard time like actually in my own mind visualizing myself becoming older, but at the same time I am able to visualize certain things in the future, right? Like I'm able to think about it and see that in the future in a way for myself. But yeah, it's almost like okay, so what I can see is like in the future of, you know, when I'm in my 40s, 50s, I'm in my, you know, mid 30s now ish, not quite there. But I can see up until maybe, you know, 50. After that, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to do. It's hard to visualize.
Which kind of gets me to that point. The first question I asked was like, would you want to know when basically your
I
expiration,
don't
your
want to
last
know.
day is?
I don't
You
want
don't. Yeah.
to
I don't know if I want to know yet. Honestly, because a
do.
part of me does want to know. I do. I do want to know.
What would you do with the information? You would just like live up your life. You would just like plan your life better.
Yeah. And you know why I think I feel this way is because when I hit the age of 28, I was like, I had a real life moment at that point. I was like, holy shit, I'm 28. Because just what you said, like the days just, they just go, you know, and the months just go. And then it's a new birthday, like, holy shit. And, you know, I continuously think about that. So for me, it was like, yeah, I'm a bit worried with time. It keeps on going. But the visualization, not quite there.
Yeah, I can see why somebody would want to know. I think I don't even know. I mean honestly, I don't care. Like, I think that's the thing for me. Is like I don't even care one way or another. Like if somebody told me, I'd be like, oh, okay. But
I do care because
I
you know
don't.
what I think about? This is what I think about mainly with life. It's not so much like, oh, have I done the things I want to do before I die? It's more, I think about what I want my future to be. I want a family in my future. I want to have kids in my future. And I think about them. I'm thinking, well, if I'm going to die at that point, then it's like they're going to grow up and then not have me around. And at what point am I not going to be in their lives, anymore? That's the kind of thing I think about because I think a lot of it comes from just my own
That's a
upbringing.
lot. That's deep.
I know, but I think about what that next level would look like. So if I knew when my last day will be, I could kind of like, I don't know, be more prepared. Because if I knew like you're going to die by the age of 50, I'm not going to have kids.
Really?
Nope.
Why?
Because if I know that information, it's a fact. You're going to die when you're 50, which is like 15 years from now. 25 years from now. And if I knew this information at that point, it's like, even if I had kids right now, they would still be young by the time I will be gone. Not that young, but they will still be, growing, like getting into adulthood.
That's life though.
I
Like
know it's life. I know
whether
it's life, but
I had people. I mean, your father, like
Mhm.
I had people pass away when I was in elementary school, middle school.
Sure.
I had friends
And
that
that
passed, like, and so I think
and that can still
they're gonna,
happen.
yeah, that's gonna happen. That doesn't mean that somebody can't have a wonderful life and
Of
contribute to the
course
world.
not. Of course not. But I'm saying if I have a choice, if I know, if someone were to tell me, like, hey, you are going to die in X amount of years, let's say it's in 10 years from now, I will be like, holy shit, okay, well, that sucks. But what am I gonna do for the next 10 years? And trust me, Robert, I'm not about to pop up some babies in the next 10
Now that
years.
makes that's fair because that's basically a
Right?
whole year you can't do nothing. Like that's a whole year you pregnant, basically.
I
Now you
wasn't
really
even
only got,
thinking
now
about
you
it
really only
that
got
way.
now you only got 24 years.
I wasn't even thinking about it that way, but like I said, again, I'm thinking more about like a couple more layers of that impact. So for me, it's not at that point like just about me. It's also the rest of the people in my life. And for me, like I have that, I feel like sense of responsibility probably if you're a parent, like it's your job to take care and raise this human being. So if I knew ahead of them even being born that I wasn't going to be there for them, then no.
I think about my kids, and I'm like, my kids might not even like me. They might be
No,
happy that I brought them into the world and happy that I'm gone.
that's true. I was like, I'm like, my kids are fucking loving me, whether they like
Yeah,
to or
your assumption is that your kids are gonna love you.
not. Yeah, I've already assumed that. I was like,
Hey,
of
that's
course, like,
your assumption is that look, I'm not gonna bring you in here because when I'm gone, you're gonna be devastated. So let me just not even to the world.
I'm not even going to. I know it's gonna suck. Like, but I think this is actually to this point. The bigger point is a lot of the times I think as humans we do project our feelings quite a lot into whatever is next, right? Like, so that's almost in a way me projecting my feelings from how I was, raised or the experience that I went through into someone else, and that's not right either. But I think we do this quite a lot. Same thing, coming back to this tech sales experience. It's like sometimes when we're having conversations with others, it's almost like they're projecting something that they went through or something that was difficult or challenging or even great for them onto somebody else.
Okay, next episode, here's what we need to talk about. Very, very important topic.
Mm-hmm.
How you and I are going to prevent the terror AI from getting our YouTube series and creating some AI version of us, because that's another thing too. Like we can, like we're sharing our whole fears and thoughts about the future. One day there's gonna be AI that's gonna digest this video and be like, oh, this is Robert, and so we gotta think about that. Like,
Well, I mean, yes, so AI great, but how can AI take away what you and I bring to the conversation, which is ourselves, our personalities,
I'll tell you,
our life?
because a lot of what we just shared, I would imagine is some of it is And as we have more videos, a lot of it is what you would likely share with a tarot reader. Like you would tell them like your thoughts on the future, what you believe in, like this is what you would tell them. And so if the AI is now taking these videos, putting it into text, and then there's a tarot.ai, they have their model that basically takes all of this stuff, your birthday, all whatever information, and then they feeds it into their tarot algorithm. Next thing you know, I'm gonna be getting solicitations for like they're gonna be sending me my tarot, and I didn't even ask for it.
You know what this sounds like? This sounds like the beginning of a conspiracy theory about AI that I can't.
I'm cool with AI. I'm just not cool with tarot AI.
Okay.
This is yeah. Okay. Anyway, yeah, we'll talk about this on another episode.
Discuss this next time.
Okay. See you later.
I love it. Bye.